interested in music at all. In fact, in music classes, I always kept my mouth shut except for one song which I liked. And I'd open my mouth and sing Santa Lucia. I did pretty well in high school, and I had a lot of encouragement from my high school teachers and so forth. I should certainly go to university if I could. Yeah. Well, of course, I had a scholarship, so then I had a job. I used to wash trays at the cafeteria. So between the two of those, I suppose other odds and ends, I kept eating.
Why did you decide to follow a career in music instead of science?
Well, there weren't any jobs in science at the time, but I had a chance to do part-time teaching in City High music. So that's how I got going in music.
And then what followed after that?
Well, I got more and more, and then started teaching some in the university, and finally transferred over to the university, of course.
Will you tell us about your marriage?
My marriage? Well, no. It's an odd question.
Who was your wife?
Can't even think of her name. You'll have to look that up.
Lois?
Lois, yeah. She was a girl from Kansas. It was a secret marriage. You see, she was teaching, but she wasn't allowed to teach. It was a time when married teachers weren't allowed to teach. So we disappeared into New York City and got married and figured that'd be okay, you know. So we got married. Came home. The first night I was living with a friend of mine from my hometown. Came home about midnight and he said, "Say, I heard you got married in New York City." It got in the papers. I don't know why or how or who. Never could figure that out. But they didn't fire me, or they didn't fire her, I should say. Because it was married people weren't supposed to be teaching. So we were lucky.
What were your greatest achievements in your career? Can you sum them up? Or highlight a few for us?
Well, I can't say that, that there was some cataclysmic change that occurred while I was there. We kept things going, and enrollments increased, and so I thought we were on the right trail anyway. And I think that we had a very good faculty. I don't remember anyone on the faculty that was hired during my time that I thought we should never have hired him, or her, as the case may be. So I think we were very fortunate to have first-rate faculty who was interested in making something of their job, as I was. I stopped and wondered where all this stuff came from.
This is an autographed copy of the Hummel Bassoon Concerto, written in Hummel's hand. Does this jog any memories for you?
It's too long ago.
So you found this, discovered this, and you must have made a Xerox of it and brought it back to the United States and handed it to one of your students, Ron Tyree.
Oh, yeah.
And he made this his DMA
that's right.
thesis.
Yeah, I've forgotten all about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I made the rounds of, the European libraries. I would just tell them they were awfully good to me. Some of them closed at noon. They'd say, "Well, here are the keys. Just don't let anybody in." Well, which I didn't do. No, they let me go back in the stacks and look for stuff, I never ran off with anything.
Bassoonists all over the world perform this now, and we have it thanks to you.
Well, thanks. Some librarians were real snooty, and others, if they saw you really interested in something, you know, would give you all the help they could. But it varied, but most of them were very nice. And this was, well, this was not too long after the wars, and libraries were hard up. Some of the libraries just had stoves in there, burning coal, you know. They'd get me a chair and a desk by the stove. Here's the music. I'm not kidding. It was tough in something like Czechoslovakia and countries like that were awfully hard hit by the wars and so on.
This is a book that you donated. The History of Adolf Sax.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he invented the saxophone, yeah. Mm. It's quite an invention. Some people may feel that they should have forgotten about it, but...
Now this is a thesis written by you.
Oh my goodness.
And
that's terrible.
It says 1934, a thesis submitted in partial fulfillment of the requirements for the degree of Master of Arts in the Department of Psychology.
Well, I forgot all about that. What did about, oh, the timbre of the clarinet tone, yeah. Well, you see, before that time, we didn't have apparatus to do that sort of thing. So when that came, you know, on deck, of course, it had nothing to do with that, but at least it was possible to make that kind of a study. Otherwise, it was sort of guesswork. You see, a clarinet tone really is 5 or 6 tones. Are you aware of that? Mm-hmm. If you blow, let's see, well, C third space, there are actually a whole bunch of tones in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it took a while before we had instruments, you know, you could do that, to do that with. So that's what I was dealing with, you know. But the dean, he directed everybody's study. You had to check with him constantly. Mm-hmm. But he was very nice. As I say, he lived just 3 houses from me. So we were, in the summers, he'd be sitting on his swing out there, swinging, you know, and I'd stop and visit with him on my way home from the building. Those were the days.
Those were the days.
Yeah. Enough?
Well, I know one thing about you, Dr. Voxman. The rest of the faculty highly admired you.
Well, thank you.
And I don't think there was anybody who didn't.
Well, I've always had some affection for the illiterate and, and others.
Was there a moment in your career as a musician that you particularly remember because it was just so wonderfully perfect, where everything came together? You're playing, perhaps the group's playing or the orchestra's playing.
Well, it would be, but it's kind of hazy because I can't give you the details, but occasionally we would have some noted conductor come in to the university, you know, and conduct the university orchestra when I was there, and someone nationally known or internationally known would be hired, and some great composers came here. The university would have somebody come, and they'd meet the class for a week or so, you know, and look at student compositions and that sort of thing. But those were always great days because a lot of the people who came were internationally known, so it was nice to take them to lunch. And well, Aaron Copland, for example, was one of the greatest American composers, was here, and people like that would come, spend 2 or 3 days and look at student compositions and so on. So that was always exciting. And the other thing was going to Chicago and hear the Chicago Symphony from time to time, in New York occasionally. So it was kind of nice to hit some of the hot spots, so to speak, along the way.
It's very interesting to me the way you answered that question, quite modestly, if I may say. You responded in terms of my greatest moments as an educator, as an administrator, and as a listener.
Those were the greater moments, yes. It's quite exciting, you know you're still alive.